Welcome to Life by Design, where I'm sharing practical energy tips and inspiration for ambitious empaths with bright energy, big dreams, and big destinies. Today, we have an extra special treat for you. You can see who's with me here, Mr. Guy Finley, and we're going to be talking about his latest book, Relationship Magic, Waking Up Together, and he's going to share with us some of the topics that will relate to you in your relationships and give you some empowerment and different strategies to approach the people that you love. So welcome, Guy. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. I'm glad to be with you, for sure.
All right. Well, I love the title of your book, Relationship Magic. So can you tell us a little bit about what you mean by magic in relation to the relationships that we have?
Certainly. If you were suddenly thrown back, let's say 1000 AD, 1200 AD, someplace in Europe, and you happen to take with you a lighter like we have today that costs 39 cents, you walked into a room and you lit a fire with that, they'd call you a witch and probably burn you at the stake, because it would be magic to them that someone could create fire out of nothing. In much the same way, when I speak of relationship magic, I'm talking about a power that is already part of who and what we are, but that because, forgive me for saying so, we live in the dark ages relative to our capacity to understand and help one another with our misunderstanding of each other and our pain. Relationship magic refers to a way in which a person can take what would be an ordinary moment of mistrust, doubt, or fear, anger towards a partner, and transform that moment into something that is empowering, not just for you, but for your partner, because the magic in that moment would be that rather than blaming them and punishing them for your perception of their impatience or whatever it may be, suddenly you are the one who is bearing the proper responsibility for that moment in which you are able to see yourself, and in the revelation of that character that always wants to find someone or something to be blamed for it, you know it's not so. You become the one who accepts the responsibility, changing yourself and the moment and giving your partner space to be different. And that's magic, because a new possibility is born out of it in the very moment it's enacted.
And that's incredibly empowering for people who sometimes feel like they're at the mercy of the people who they live with, you know, whether it's a spouse or their family members. It brings the power and control back to the individual themselves, which can then radiate outward to the people in their lives instead of expecting the people outside of them to change first.
Yes.
And yeah, so I love that.
Like an example, because everything depends upon you and I and anybody that might be joining us, having within them an understanding that though we may not be able to enact it yet, we are not meant to act out anger, violence, resentment. All of these negative energies are not meant to be given a body, a voice, let alone a heart that gives them a life on this plane of existence. Were it not for humanity, these negative energies would have no place to exhibit or manifest themselves in this world. We are the instruments of those energies, and we don't know that we are, because those same energies make someone else seem the person responsible for exuding that horrible state. So, an example. Nobody likes when our partner, someone at work, someone in a car behind us, is impatient with us. It grinds on us. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
So our habitual response to an impatient person is that they have a problem, and that we need to make sure they understand their problem. And we do so by usually being impatient with them, lashing out. But we don't see our negative reaction as a limitation because we're too busy judging their limitation in order to be able to see it. So the beauty of this that we're talking about, of my new book, is that we can begin to realize my problem with you is really never what you have said or done. What you have said and done has come as a gift to me to reveal through that moment a limitation I've been living with that I don't know I have. Impatience is a limitation regardless who or what we want to blame for it. And when we realize changing your limitation, which I can't do anyway, we all know that. I've never changed another human being by being impatient with them. Have you?
No. Come to think of it, no. It doesn't work.
Blaming other people for our pain makes that other person sure that they're right for blaming us. So the task is to be present enough to realize the revelation in the moment. The saying, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. Well, guess who the teacher is? Everyone and everything that reveals to us a limitation in our present consciousness. And when we will accept the revelation as an invitation to realize this limitation, you have magic. Because once we realize the limitation is in us, we're going to let it go. We're going to realize we can't give it our voice, we can't lend it our thoughts, and we're not about to instrument it anymore. It dies on the spot, and something new is born, which is a new possibility between you and your partner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that reminds me of the story that you shared in chapter 4, which really touched my heart. And I think a lot of people will relate to this in what you've just said, which is that we are taught by the people around us, and we're taught in those most difficult moments. And you can probably tell this like 10 times better than I can, but just to kind of recap that story, it was the woman in the grocery store, and this man, this big guy, steps on her sore toe, and she's getting ready to just lash out at the guy. And then she looks down and sees his red-tipped cane, and that completely changes her experience of that man and what he did, which, you know, obviously it did hurt, but she had a different impression and a different picture because she saw his limitation. I thought that was so powerful.
That's exactly the right story for what we're talking about. Because, look, what happens when somebody, not in the supermarket, steps on your toe? Meaning, psychologically, comes at you, some passive-aggressive comment that we all love so much. You know, some family member just throws that little dig in at the dinner table. And what happens? Negativity is a blinding force. We summarily, instantaneously resist anything thrown at us that challenges an image we have of ourselves. But we don't know we carry these images, these ideas and beliefs that no one should ever step on our toe. what changes the moment in the story as a metaphor is suddenly she has a new awareness. She's not just blinded by her negative reaction. Instead, she's released from her reaction by the awareness of the actuality that this man cannot see what he's doing. No one who hurts us can see what they've done any more than we can see what we're doing when we lash back and hurt them. A new awareness replaces unconsciousness, and unconsciousness is brought into a world where compassion based on mutual understanding replaces it. And that's how we're meant to be with ourselves and others.
Now, how can people who are, get triggered by their family members or their spouse, how can they start to become aware of these unconscious patterns within themselves? And I would say that whenever we're triggered, that's an unconscious pattern that we get to deal with in some way and grow from. But how can people in the moment, just kind of stop themselves or change the direction of what their normal response would be when it is such an unconscious, like, oh my gosh, I feel the emotion rising up and, all of that. How do people respond in a better way?
I wish I had more of a voice. I had the flu and I'm just without a voice, but it's such a great question because first, really simple. What if you and I knew, or at least could take with us, here I'm going to my local supermarket, Walmart, TJ Maxx, whatever it is, wherever I go, I'm thinking of my wife. And I go there knowing, even though I can't see it, that everyone I'm looking at has a cane with a white tip on it.
Wow.
Everyone. Now, what would it take? Look, what does that mean? I know that when I go to a supermarket or a big store, someone's going to walk into me with their cart. Someone's going to be wearing something that, for the love of God, I can't imagine how they would put it on. Someone's going to, get into the checkout lane, 10 items only, with 3 carts, right?
On there. Yeah.
I know that there is in me something that's going to get triggered. I know I have time bombs in me that are going to go off when the trigger is set. So if I actually know that, then I go where I'm going, realizing that I must have, and I don't know if you know scripture, I go before you to make the crooked places straight. Meaning, I go with you as an understanding, a light, that is going to show you where that point is in that passage of time, where you're going to run into someone or something as sure as the sun is going to rise, that's going to set you off. So we're going to be prepared. Mm-hmm. We're going to remember that within us lives a limitation. We're going to remember that. Now, how do we get to the point where we actually remember that already in us is a belief, an opinion? You're talking to somebody and God help you and them, they have a contrary political or religious opinion. I actually saw in my doctor's office yesterday, I've never seen it before, a sign, and it said, please do not discuss political or religious beliefs in this office, in the waiting room. Now, why do you think that's there? Because all you have to do is run into somebody that you don't know you're going to run into. You might just overhear somebody talking, and then you're going to jump in. it isn't you that jumps in. It is this time bomb. It is this identification with a particular path, a belief, an ideology that when it's triggered is going to try to make sure that whatever threatened it is squashed on the spot. How do I get to know that that lives in me? With enough conscious experience of going through this iteration so that I begin to realize I need to be watchful at all times. The very word watchful is used over 24 times by Christ in the New Testament. Be watchful, be awake, watch with me. It's a word that in the old language means be present and realize that you have in you that which is going to oppose something in the moment. So pray means be in the presence of this understanding, and you will be able to use the moment profitably. Long answer, sorry, but that's what we're getting. We're getting to, I know that when someone's impatient, the first thing I become is impatient. I know if someone doubts me, the first thing I do is make sure they understand, don't mess with me. We all have knee-jerk reactions whose reality is not created by someone else, but that others, by the grace of God, reveal in us as already being there. Mm-hmm. So everyone acts as an agent of the divine. That's really the purpose, one of the purposes of my book, to prove that love never stops trying to get to us, through us, by other people's relationship with us, because they show us what we have to see to die to what is keeping us from knowing higher love.
Yeah, and I think too that when people are, their feathers get ruffled or they're triggered, it's kind of like a thank you moment. It's like, thank you for showing me that I have this belief or value system in myself that I can grow and work with. But I think a lot of people, I'd say the majority of people, are more in the pointing the finger stage or blaming. Yeah. And that's what keeps people in those relationships that are not fulfilling and that are, the dynamics are off. And so for people to feel empowered, I love what you're saying about them taking full responsibility by knowing that every time they're triggered, it's something within themselves that they get to be aware of. And that also reminds me of something in that same chapter where you were saying something about it's not our job to illuminate our partner. And I really love that because especially in my community, or people who are empathic and sensitive and they really have a heart to help other people, that can come out in ways that can be counterproductive. And so I think the focus being on themselves is the most powerful place to put their focus rather than on their partner. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Another passage, but not just from Western scripture, all scripture, East and West, has at its root this idea that Christ put into simple words, physician, heal thyself. What does heal thyself mean? It means be aware of what keeps injuring you and injuring others when it appears. So that if we can start to understand, my task is not to point out to you your limitation. My task is to be aware of what I am judging in you as being my limitation. The judge is part of a pattern. If we want a pattern to end, it doesn't end. Look, if I have a stick and I cut off one end of the stick, I still have a stick with two ends. If I have a stick and I cut off one end. I paint one end. I put chocolate on one end of the stick. It's still a stick with two ends. These are opposites. In order for a pattern produced by judging others, blaming others, or judging ourselves, blaming ourselves for our limitation, we must understand the way a pattern ends is when one of us realizes no fight is going to come to an end unless somebody steps out of the ring before the fight begins. I want my partner to set down their gloves. I want the world to walk away from what I see is making me angry. That's not how it works. We must be the one who sees the only way the pattern comes to an end is when we simply recognize we're part of it. And then we say, I will not be a part of this anymore. I will pick up the tab for this problem, and then you do what you're going to do, but I am no longer complicit in the continuation of this conflict.
Mm-hmm. So it's more choosing not to engage with a conflict and choosing to focus on oneself and that growth. Do you think that when someone focuses on their own personal development and growth, that it does have an effect on the people that they love?
There's only one consciousness. A true empath, a true awakening man or woman understands that there's 6 billion individual forms, instruments of that consciousness, but it is one consciousness, just as it's one tree in a billion different forms, one deer, one squirrel, expressed through an absolute infinite number of creatures, each and every one the active expression of an individual principle. So it is with consciousness, so that if I die to what is unconscious, unkind, and permissive to painful patterns, every last moment, that one action changes the whole of all future actions for everyone, even though it may be just a drop in the water of that mind.
That's really powerful. Just let that sink in. I mean, with the people listening, I mean, just let that sink in, because that, you know, it truly brings your power to you. And, you know, you do have that responsibility and that ability to create massive change through your own choices.
Look, and we can add to this. Physics validates this. You bring any form of light into any darkness in the universe, even physically, and all darkness is changed on the spot. You bring one drop of higher awareness into an unconscious mind, and it's one mind. That mind and its unconsciousness is raised to that degree that that person agrees to die to what they had been unaware of in themselves up until that point. That's the meaning of every avatar who ever walked this planet and brought about true change, because they first instrumented the transition through a transformation in the human consciousness as an individual expression of it, and then through the example in time radiating out to all who could receive the message. But the message changed the whole of the consciousness in the instant that it was implemented through that individual willing to die to him or herself.
Yeah, I kind of see that as just, you know, the pebble in the pond and all those ripples going out, where just that one act or that one person, that one, the healing within that person can really affect everybody. And it does affect everybody.
Absolutely. I mean, just even at the simplest level, we can get big. We did see how all this is connected, the butterfly effect. But how about I'm driving in my car. Somebody cuts me off. As a rule, what happens? This is why they don't put laser weapons in cars, because if you could evaporate that person on the spot, you would be instantaneous. But let's say I've psychologically evaporated enough people, and I begin to realize, you know what? The first person hurt with my anger is me.
Yeah.
I'm the one. It starts here. So one day, I remember that. I get in my car, and I realize people are driving with a white-tipped cane. And here comes somebody. They cut me off, and I feel the reaction, but my new understanding goes before me. Mm-hmm. And it says, look to thyself first. Ooh, wow, this hurts. I don't want to hurt anybody else. I'm not going to hurt anybody else. So instead of thinking about them, tailgating them, wishing them ill, hoping a cop catches them, whatever we do, I go in that moment into a new awareness and give up a part of myself. Now listen, so I come home and I'm in this new awareness. I don't come home still angry because I can't change the idiot on the road. And instead of being in a negative state that my wife would pick up, even if I didn't speak it, so that she backs off, resisting the energy I'm emanating, mm-hmm. We have this sudden recognition of each other at a different level. Because I have been changed, she has space to enter into another relationship whose possibility wouldn't exist if I didn't suffer the pain first myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that makes me think of, that people are doing the best that they can with the resources that they have. And so yes. When you're driving and someone cuts you off, it's like, we don't know if they're on their way to the hospital, there's a family emergency. Like, we never know like what is going on for that other person or whatever they're going through. And I think that releases each person from going into those emotional states that are negative, or going into story and taking that through their day, taking it through their week. I mean, some people hold on to it and it just starts to fester. So
if I pick up a hot skillet, does it matter why I picked it up?
No.
See, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
We're convinced it matters why people do what they do, because we measure them by what we've decided matters. What matters is love. What matters is changing ourselves. That's what matters. Mm-hmm. Nothing else matters. And as long as it matters what others do, say, act out, what they believe, as long as that's a matter to us, matter being literally physical, there's no change in consciousness possible. Maybe I speak 3 times a week here in Southern Oregon, where I live and teach at my foundation. Those are going to be the 3 words I'm going to teach about this coming week. It doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter whether the sun sets an hour early. Look, I'm grumpy and negative because the fall has come. No, you're grumpy and negative because there's grumpiness and negativity in you, and it blames it on the weather. This is what we have to understand. Everything is given to us, not taken. We are not thrown into this world. We're sown into this world for a purpose. And when we start understanding that, then it doesn't matter what the world throws at us, because we can take what's thrown and use it as energy to change what is sown in us for the purpose of becoming a godly man, a divine woman, to express our true consciousness and all that it entails, which is compassion, patience, kindness, and sacrifice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love just connecting into those bigger energies, that truly matter, the positivity and the light. It just surpasses all of that other little stuff underneath the surface, which a lot of it is unconscious. People aren't
It
meaning
all is.
to,
Of
they're
course.
not meaning to offend us. I mean, we're not meaning to offend other people. It's just that we're all walking around with these huge blind spots. I mean, just knowing that our conscious mind is like so minuscule in comparison to our unconscious mind, which is always interjecting and getting into our space. And as long as we're aware of that, then we can change things and we can create that magic in our relationships.
By understanding that every moment is a revelation, the appearance of an energy that is designed to touch what is asleep in us. What is unconscious in us is not a curse. It's not evil. It isn't bad. It's just untransformed essence. It's material like Sleeping Beauty waiting for the kiss of the divine, that it can wake up and become aware of itself and integrated into that broader awareness that touches it so that it may be united into a new order of being. To understand that means to realize everything is a gift. Everything is being given to us if we know how to use the gift instead of hate the one who, as a messenger, probably asleep, has handed us a situation designed to transmutate who and what we are so that we leave that moment a different order of human being capable of loving more than we were the moment before.
Mm-hmm. And this changes the paradigm of what love and relationships truly are, because I think the impression of what relationships are is very different than what they actually are. And in discovering what that is, there is a lot of hardship and challenge that comes with relationship magic, is what it sounds like. So, this makes me think of the story that you shared in chapter 3, with Saul digging for that treasure and realizing that he didn't even know what it looked like. and it's kind of like love. Like, what would you say, what does love really look like?
Your intuition is so good here, because that's the point of the story. Look, where do you live?
I live in Carlsbad, California.
Okay, so now I used to live in California. I didn't even know that there was such thing as fall, because in California trees don't change.
Yeah, there's a slight
when we moved here to Oregon, true story, I drove up before my wife to look around at places, and I called her. It was in November. I said, "Sweetheart, it's too late." "What's too late?" "The acid rain has killed everything. All the trees here are dead." "I can't believe it." This was back in '92. And she from back east said, "Silly man, it's fall."
The leaves fall off the trees.
I swear to God, I didn't know. I said, "Oh, thank God." So if I come back to myself, not in thought, present to myself, there's no moment I look out and see all of this beauty that isn't a new beauty. It's not an old beauty. It's a new beauty. Why? Because the revelation of the moment brings up in me what can only be made conscious through what is made present to it. It's a marriage. Love can only be known in the moment that it reveals itself. You can't know it before then. That's our problem. I think I know what love is. And to prove to you that I know what love is, I will despise you if you don't love the way I think you should love.
Mm-hmm.
Love is unknowable by thought. Love belongs to a level of consciousness that is free and empowered by being in presence. Presence is always new. To know love is to die to thought, is to die to opinion, is to die to the limitation of belief. That's what the sacrifice, the crucifixion is. To lose one's life to gain it is to recognize that I have a life in time. I have to know to be on time to talk to you. I have to know where I'm going later today. That's in thought. But to be present and to share an intelligence and a compassion, if I'm in thought, I'm not here.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't know what love is to look for it, but I sure know what love isn't when it is revealed by love.
Wow. That's got a lot of layers to it. Because I think when people choose a partner, they're going off of that, whatever's in their perception of what love is. And that's always the rude awakening, right? You go through that honeymoon period, and then there's that awakening of like, oh my gosh, who is this person? Like, who am I turning into? And that all starts to happen. And I love, I don't know what chapter that is, but I love when you talk about when people start to realize that, this person is bringing out like the worst qualities in me. Everything that used to be great, I'm seeing in a completely different light. And that's the whole idea.
Yeah. From Yahoo to oh no, from you bring out the best in me to you're bringing out the worst in me.
Right.
And if it weren't for you, this wouldn't be there. Oh yes, it is.
Mm-hmm.
I write in the book, as hard as it is to understand, that everyone you will ever meet, everyone I will ever know, is a secret agent of love. They don't know it,
Mm-hmm.
but you can begin to know it. They're undercover.
Yeah.
Like they're a sleeping cell. They don't know that they've been given a job to come to you and help you wake up. Just as you don't know that you're there in their life to show them limitation. We actually believe, because of a mistaken idea of what love is, that we're not meant to have limitations. So our belief that we're not meant to be limited fills us with pretense, because I believe that appearing like I'm loving is the same thing as being loving. And it passes off until somebody does something, my mask falls, and there's a werewolf underneath this face. We must thank people for showing us. Why? Because we're not the werewolf either.
Mm-hmm.
We're not any of these things. Who we are cannot be thought about. Neither can love. Love wants to show us that. Love wants to release us from these false beliefs that there's something in us to be feared, let alone that we should blame others for showing us these fears. Then we have something real to work with. We know the saying, I fell in love. Well, did I fall into Patricia? We've been together 40 years. Did she fall into Guy? Or did we fall into something that brought us together for the purpose of helping us grow as a couple and as individuals first? We fell into love that brought us together, that we might recognize there is a love that is there before either of us was born. Now we have a unity in something timeless that can never leave us, even when one of us is no longer in a body.
Mm-hmm. Eternal. Yeah. Wow, Guy, you take things to the next level. You know, it gives a new picture, a refreshing picture to what is possible in our
Yes.
relationships when we have the courage to look at ourselves in a new way and not be afraid of, some of those darker aspects that are dredged up by the people around us that we love and we want to love and we want to be in relationship with. So,
Look at what a prophetess you are. That's what love does. Not what Guy does. That's what love does. When love can be there, we will always see something deeper than we saw before, because love was there, showing it to us, trying to introduce us to that new depth that was already in our own heart.
mhm. Yes. So I love that. We've got it all. We've got it all. We just have to be willing to see it.
Yep.
Okay. Well, gosh, Guy, the time did fly by, as
I
you
know.
mentioned.
I'll zip my lip.
No. I wish we had more time, but at least we have a glimpse of what your book is about, how it can help people. We've just scratched the surface here today.
Yes.
I know that we're going to be providing links for our listeners who would like to get your book, Relationship Magic, Waking Up Together. Is there anything that you would like to share in closing?
Just that when you put up the relationshipmagicbook.com link, everybody understands they get a free audible version of the book that I read with the book they order, plus another gift, a 6-hour MP3 album on the higher aspect of love. I live and teach in Southern Oregon. If you go to guyfinley.org, you can visit my website, and I'm on all the social nets at Guy Finley Official, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. So act on the knowledge, follow up. What we just shared, we're all meant to share in. And everybody can have as nice a time with each other as you and I did.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Guy, for being here, sharing your wisdom. I love the pictures that you paint for us. You're a true spiritual teacher and just have such a generous heart. So thank you for sharing your time and your wisdom with us today.
And my thanks to you for allowing me to be with you and have this time to share.
You're welcome. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us today. And we'll have those links up for Guy, how to get his book and how to get his newsletter. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time on A Life by Design.